fine. Okay. So first of all, the thing I kind of want to talk to you about a little bit today is about celebrity endorsements and what that looks like. So things to get started, I want to talk about what do you think your voice brings to the Harris Walls campaign?
I think the voice of my experience, put aside the celebrity because I'm on Shark Tank. I mean, I've started businesses, I've run business, I've invested in business. My job on Shark Tank, if you will, is to understand every business that walks in the door. So I have a great connection to smaller businesses and understanding what tax policy, tariff policy, healthcare policy does to their bottom line and the impact it has on their culture and their employees.
And so what made you want to get involved in this campaign? What about it pulled you in?
Yeah, I just think Kamala Harris will be a much better candidate. I've known Donald Trump for 25 years. I think he's done a good job selling himself as a great business person, but he's not. He just, I talk a lot to small businesses about their own experiences, the challenges of making payroll, of paying for healthcare. He's never had to deal with those things. He's never said, been in a position where he's been broke and he's going to start a business, or, he started a very small business and had to grow it. He walked into the Trump organization and the experiences are completely different. And so being able to connect with small, medium-sized businesses and help them understand that they'll be more profitable and put more money in the bank with Kamala Harris than Donald Trump, I think is important.
And so, you are a big name. People, recognize you and who you are and the pull you have. So, what does it mean for the Harris campaign to have you kind of advocating for that part of her policy and some of the talking points that she's used? What do you think that adds?
Well, I've done town halls and really I talk a little bit, but I spend a lot more time answering questions because it's tough for individual business owners to get their specific questions answered. And that's exactly what I try to do. If your question's about healthcare, I can tell you, what Kamala Harris is going to do. If you're concerned about mass deportations and the impact it's going to have on your ability to find employees, I can't tell you everything exactly, but I can give you a really good idea. And I can tell you for certain that she's not for mass deportations like Donald Trump. If you want to understand exactly how a tariff is going to impact your business, I can tell you that even when Donald Trump just discusses tariffs and threatens to do them, a lot of people start to take cash from other sides of their business and go to their manufacturers and buy as much as they can to beat the tariffs and the price raisers. And that impacts their ability to hire, their ability to grow their companies. I can give you example after example of how tariffs hurt small businesses and hurts consumers. And, unless you've been through it, unless you've dealt with the brokers and having to write that check and the experience of dealing with tariffs, you don't know. And I think Donald Trump really doesn't understand them. But my ability is to answer those specific questions that small businesses have on the difference and the impact of tariffs that Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump.
And so I kind of want to shift topics just a little bit, but we saw some big names come out for supporting Harris. Like we saw Beyonce last night. She just announced a rally here in Madison with, again, some really big musical artists coming to support her. What do you think this does? Like, do you think this helps connect people? How does this help her?
So here's where it really helps. It takes energy to get out there and vote. We're all so worn down by this whole process of trying to determine, who's going to win. And, we all go back and forth. Not all of us are excited to vote. And when you have a rally like that, it really gets people attached. You feel the energy, you get excited, and it really creates an incentive and really just energizes people to go vote. And so when you see those big rallies, it's not so much let's talk policy because most people have their position already. But when you see Beyonce there, when you see an artist that you really admire and they tell you to go vote, that's the difference because, if you weren't sure, you didn't know what to do, and now you find out here's the polling place, you can vote early. Beyonce says, or whoever says, go vote. That's something. And I think that's where it really matters. It's not about policy, it's about getting excited to vote.
And so for different types of celebrities too, in the sports world, we're seeing Donald Trump using Brett Favre, who's a former Packers player here, as well as like Harris using Doc Rivers. What does it mean to have, like a sports figure and maybe not just like an artist, different kinds of celebrities with these different campaigns?
I mean, again, people who have had success, I think, can send a message that here's what's important to me. And if it's important to you, go out and vote. I don't, you don't really see celebrities for the most part. I think I'm a little bit different just because of my business background, talking about details in policy. It's really just about get out the vote. And I think that's what's going to make the difference in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. And, because the people who vote it'll be so close that it could be just 100 votes, 200 votes, 1,000 votes that decide who wins or loses. And I think that's where the celebrity endorsements really come in, just particularly at a rally, just getting people excited to go out and vote.
And so I want to talk about the differences in the people that both campaigns have used. Can you talk to me a little bit about who you've noticed kind of endorsing Trump and then who you've noticed endorsing Harris and what those differences look like, what that
Yeah, I
20.
mean, I haven't paid all that much attention because I've been really, really busy. But obviously, people talk about Elon, and he's gone kind of trollish on Twitter. That's kind of his home base, and he'll say anything regardless of whether or not it's true. And when people are just lying like that, it's usually because they have to. They're concerned that the truth doesn't work in their favor. And then you turn it around, and he's trying to pay people to go register or sign his petition in his words. I mean, that to me, that shows desperation. It shows you don't have confidence in your own candidate. Otherwise, why would you have to pay $1 million just to get people to sign a petition? Kamala Harris, people support her. They come out, if you've been to some of the rallies, you feel the energy, you hear the screaming, you hear the yelling, you know that people are there to support her. And I think that that's completely different than what Trump's doing and, specifically to Elon Musk. I mean, I just don't see what it accomplishes.
And so kind of a question that you touched on a little bit earlier, but you yourself, do you say that you're kind of more get out the vote person, or you said that you're talking with town halls, trying to help business owners, things like that, but are you also kind of get out the vote? Is that part of
Yeah,
what
of course. So
you're
here's exactly what my message is. If you're a small business, you're going to be better off financially because, taxes, 99% of small business owners make $400,000 or less. So your taxes are staying the same or going down. And that's almost every small business owner in the country. Number two is healthcare. The second biggest expense that any small business has, and the most terrifying expense any family has, is healthcare costs. Kamala Harris has said specifically she's going to go after the pharmacy benefit managers, the pharmaceutical middlemen, and not only that, introduce transparency. I've seen that have an impact to cut costs 20, 30% or more. Donald Trump says he has a concept of a plan. People need to know that their healthcare costs are going down, just like they did with insulin. I think Kamala Harris is very specific there. Then there's tariffs. So many products are imported from China. Donald Trump says he's going to introduce a 60% tariff. Think about if he's president and he has a 60% tariff, what's going to happen to your Christmas presents? Think about your day-to-day expenses, paper plates, utensils, whatever it may be. Most of those are imported. How does it impact you if all those are going up 60%? It's going to cost you a lot. And not only that, it's going to cost the small businesses, the small grocery store, whatever it is that you buy from. They're going to lose a ton of business too. Donald Trump doesn't care. He thinks he's doing some great negotiating and that China pays for the tariffs. They do not. You pay for tariffs, small businesses pay for tariffs, and the consumer pays for tariffs. Like I said, if he's president, he introduces 60% tariffs, the cost of everybody's Christmas is going way up and you're going to be able to buy less. And then finally, the other big difference is deportation. Donald Trump talks about mass deportations. He talks about, going and taking people who have been in this country 20, 30, 40 years, have American children, have American grandkids, and just dragging them out and sending them back. Yes, we need a strong border. Kamala Harris believes in that as well. Yes, if you're a criminal and cross the border illegally, you should be deported immediately. And Kamala Harris has also said if you've been here 5 years or less, you're going to have to go back out and come back in and follow the right process. But what happens to everybody that has been here more than 5 years? Kamala Harris thinks, you know what, there should be a process by which we all are able to figure out what comes next for them. Donald Trump is just like, ship them back. And that's just not who we are as a country. And I don't want to be in a situation he might create where he's knocking on doors and dragging people out of their houses or doing checks on streets to check your immigration status. That's just wrong. And so those are the most striking differences between the two. And one other little thing, right? So I'm from Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's a really diverse community from all over the world. My grandparents are Ukrainian. I've been to Czech clubs. There's so many Poles. And, for Polish Americans in particular, but also a lot in Wisconsin, if Donald Trump's willing to just give Ukraine to Russia, what comes next for Poland? It's inevitable that if Vladimir Putin takes over the Ukraine, he's basically said he's going into Poland next. And that impacts the families and the ancestries and the homeland of so many people. And Donald Trump doesn't care. It's not something he pays attention to. But as somebody who is, half Ukrainian. From my grandparents' side, that's important. And I think those are the types of things that a lot of people in the media haven't paid attention to, but are very important.
All right, perfect. And I have one more quick question for you, kind of while we're on the topic of policy. Well, the economy's been a really hard-hitted point from this campaign. It's something that, Harris has received a lot of criticism on, and it's something that you yourself can, I think, speak to as a businessman. So why is this something that people should pay attention to? Why is it something you feel like Harris is stronger on? That's something that she's had a lot of criticism for. So if you could talk to me a
Yeah, I
little bit
mean, if
about
under Biden, the economy's grown, but I'm not here to tell you that every single person has experienced it the same way. And the difference is the people who have struggled, Donald Trump hasn't said he's going to do anything for them. Kamala Harris, one of the biggest problems that people who are struggling have is the cost of healthcare. The fear of getting a new prescription from the doctor and not knowing if you're going to be able to pay for it. The fear of having to cut back on, food or daycare so that you can pay for your prescription. Kamala Harris is dealing specifically with that. You haven't heard Donald Trump say a word about healthcare because he doesn't get it. He doesn't get it that the biggest expense that people have that is scary and unforeseen is their healthcare cost. That is a huge difference. So when it comes to dealing with the economy, Donald Trump isn't who he says he is. He's not somebody who's going to bring in change for the people who need it the most. Kamala Harris has said, look, if you're making $400,000 or less, not only are your taxes not going up for 100 million people, your taxes are going down. And so the people that need the help the most are going to get it. And she's talked specifically about it with specific policies from Kamala Harris and not Donald Trump.